Good morning. I read a quote I think is appropriate for me to read this morning by Ronald Reagan. It says, a leader, once convinced a particular course of action is the right one, must have the determination to stick with it and be undaunted when the going gets rough. I lift up before you this morning Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will neither slumber nor sleep. Behold, he who keeps the BVI, it says Israel, I put the BVI here, shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade upon your right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth, even forevermore. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we invoke thy blessings upon the leaders of our great country. And upon them, God, I pray that you will protect them with thy mercy and sustain them with thy good counsel. Inspire them to govern this nation in faithfulness and truth, and direct them ever to seek the welfare of all of the inhabitants of our land. Grant them to know that a nation is exalted by righteousness, but the perversion of righteousness is the root of all evil and a reproach to any people. Thou who art the Lord of all mankind, implant within their hearts respect for law, a resoluteness for purpose in advancing the cause of freedom, justice, and peace. Prosper our nation, O God, in all her worthy endeavors, and help her to be a force for good in this world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. This honorable house is now in session. I call upon the clerk. Please stand.
I, Joanne Williams Roberts, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will well and truly serve Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and the people of the Virgin Islands in the office of Attorney General. I, Joanne Williams Roberts, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
Members, please be seated. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 3, confirmation of minutes.
Honorable members, is it your pleasure that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 26 May 2022, which have been circulated to members, be confirmed? There being no dissenting voice, the minutes hereby stand confirmed as circulated. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 4, announcements by the Speaker.
Thank you. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to our listening guests and our guests who are in attendance. I have the following announcements to make. Please note that the following members have given notice of their absence from today's sitting. Minister for Natural Resources and Labor, Honorable Melvin Turnbull. Minister for Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, and Sports, Honorable Shari DeCastro. And Member for the 1st District, Honorable Andrew Foy. Thank you. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 5, statements by ministers.
Given that there are no statements from any of the honorable members or ministers, I now call upon the clerk.
Item number 6, presentation of papers.
I call upon the Honorable Premier and Minister of Finance to lay his documents.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay on the table the following documents. Statutory Instrument 2022, number 52, a proclamation by the Governor under Section 83(1) of the Virgin Islands Constitution Order 2007, appointing the time and place at which the 4th sitting of the 4th session of the 4th House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands shall be held. I also lay on the table Office of the Governor Annual Report 2019, Office of the Governor Annual Report 2020, and Office of the Governor Annual Report 2021. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. I call upon the Deputy Premier and Minister for Communications and Works to lay his documents.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay on the table the following documents: Taxi and Livery Commission's Annual Report 2020, the Department of Motor Vehicles Annual Report 2019, and the Department of Motor Vehicles Annual Report 2020. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. I now call upon the Minister for Health and Social Development to lay his documents on the table.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to lay the following documents on the table. Statutory Instruments 2020, number 47. Public Health COVID-19 Control and Suppression Measures, number 4. Amendment number 6, Order 2022. Statutory Instruments 2022, number 50. COVID-19 Control and Suppression Instrument. Entry of Persons Regulations 2022, Statutory Instrument 2022, number 51, Public Health COVID-19 Control and Suppression Measures, number 4, Amendment number 7, Order 2022. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minister for Health. I now call upon the clerk.
Item number 7, notices of motions given orally.
I call upon the Premier Minister of Finance to give notice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to give notice that at a later stage in the proceedings, I will seek leave to move the motion standing in my name under item 8.1 Roman numeral 1 to Roman numeral 3 under order of the day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. I now call upon the clerk.
8, public business. 1, government business.
I call upon the Premier Minister of Finance to move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that leave be granted to introduce the following bill standing in my name, shortly entitled Registrar of Interest Act 2022.
Is there a second?
I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that leave to introduce bill shortly entitled Register of Interest Act 2022 be granted. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I now call upon the Premier.
Madam Speaker, I introduce the bill standing in my name shortly entitled Register of Interest Act 2022 and will explain its provisions at the second reading. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Register of Interest Act 2022 be now read a first time.
To second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled the Register of Interest Act 2022 be now read a first time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. I now call upon the clerk to read the bill for the first time.
This act may be cited as the Register of Interest Act 2022.
Thank you. I call upon the Premier and Minister of Finance to move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that standing order number 52-2 be suspended to allow for the bill shortly entitled Register of Interest Act 2022 to be read a second time.
I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that standing order number 52-2 be suspended to allow the bill entitled the Register of Interest Act 2022 to be read a second time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is hereby passed. At this time, we'll take a brief recess and resume at 12 o'clock. Please be seated. This House now resumes its sitting. I call upon the Premier. To move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the bill shortly entitled Register of Interest Act 2022 be read a second time. Madam Speaker, I'll take this opportunity to speak a little bit about the Register of Interest Act 2022 and what has essentially brought us to the place where we are. Of course, Madam Speaker, even prior to the COI process, there have been discussions and calls about strengthening good governance, accountability, transparency, and other tenets of a strong, well-functioning democracy. Of course, various parties have campaigned on these things in the past, and certainly the public have been involved in these debates. As it pertains to a register of interests, which up until this point only applied to elected officials, the conclusion we have come to after all of the debate is that that register should be public. Certainly, this matter became topical for the community during the Commission of Inquiry hearings, when each member went before the commissioner and answered questions as it pertains to the Register of Interests. And of course, many of us, myself included, had not declared interest on time. To be fair, Madam Speaker, there are some aspects of the process which need to be reformed to ensure that interests are filed on time. And I'm not just speaking about the penalties. We know that based on the old act, the very same day we are sworn in, we are supposed to declare interest. And a number of us had no idea that was the case. So obviously, of course, you'll miss that deadline right off the bat. And those are things which must be improved in the system. But also, in this new bill that we are proposing, we have serious penalties for not declaring interest on time. And I certainly believe that these penalties will get members' attention, including my own attention. Madam Speaker, it's important for the public to know, especially those persons in public life, that this new register of interest will not just apply to elected members. the scope of it has expanded to persons who are permanent secretaries, persons who are in positions of authority, heads of departments, and other groups. And so the calls for transparency from elected officials will now extend to others in public life, where you will have to declare what assets you have and those of your family, your immediate family. And some persons may be concerned about that, Madam Speaker, and perhaps some of the persuasive arguments elected officials have given over the years as to why it should not be public will become relevant to other persons. They'll start to consider how much of things that they once considered private should be now exposed to the public. And that's a careful balance that we'll have to strike in committee stage between details which should be considered private and details that we want to be transparent about. We'll also have to strike the balance on exactly which bodies and which members this should apply to, and which persons connected to those in public life should be impacted by this. But the society is calling for greater transparency, and we are providing that greater transparency. Madam Speaker, it's not popular to say, but elected officials make great sacrifices to serve. Oftentimes we only hear the other side of it. We only hear about the perceived benefits. But there are quite a bit of sacrifices which are often made for persons who serve in public life. And honestly, Madam Speaker, I have great respect for those who have served for so long and have made those sacrifices over a great period of time. And we have come to members to make yet another sacrifice, which is to sacrifice private details as it pertains to the declaration of their assets, and certainly the threshold for operating in public life as it pertains to transparency has certainly gone up a few notches with the introduction and eventual passage of this bill. I want to thank members, Madam Speaker, for their sacrifice. You know, of course, sometimes I know persons feel like they're being beat up by the public sometimes, but all of that is a part of it. That's what we signed up for. And Madam Speaker, I used to teach primary school for a brief period. And when I taught primary school, I know things have changed now. Back then, we still used to give licks. And some of the children who used to get licks a lot, they stop feeling it. It's like you lick them and their hand numb. And I get so much licks out in the public, Madam Speaker, I don't even feel it again. But I want to show my appreciation, Madam Speaker, to all the members who serve in this House and all the members who have served in houses before. Because, of course, you've made sacrifices, and oftentimes, sometimes, it feels like a thankless task. So I thank members. And again, we are asking members to make yet another sacrifice as it pertains to this disclosure. And we must also state, Madam Speaker, that we are completely committed to rooting out even the possibility of corruption, even the possibility of abuse of office. And I believe very firmly that the measures we are taking will strengthen our institutions and strengthen the fabric of our society and show confidence to the public and show confidence to those persons who are encouraging us and supporting us throughout the region and the world, that we have the ability to govern ourselves and to, of course, elevate our governance to the level to one which will make our people proud and which will be able to propel us to greater success in the world. So, Madam Speaker, with that, I certainly present this bill to the members for debate, and also we look forward to doing some work on this bill in committee stage and being able to pass this bill in accordance with the high aspirations we have as persons in public life and the high aspirations we have as a people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Premier and Minister of Finance. I recognize the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second this motion for this bill, Register of Interest Act. And Madam Speaker, while I'm on my feet, I will give a brief contribution. We understand the reason that we're here with this bill. The Premier spoke of many various governments speaking about transparency and accountability when it comes to governance. Though unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that all members of the House of Assembly during the Commission of Inquiry, I think except one, failed to have gotten to the point where timely declarations were made. Madam Speaker, we are to this point, and at that stage, most members agreed that the Register of Interest should be made public. So, Madam Speaker, we are here. We are here to do just so, and to actually strengthen the legislation. The legislation also includes fines and penalties, and this is necessary, I would say, for us to stay accountable to ourselves in terms of making our declarations. Madam Speaker, I just want to quickly also state that previously we passed the Integrity in Public Life Bill, and that this now accompanies that bill where all public officers should make a declaration. And I'm speaking from a permanent secretary, even down to a custodian worker. And Madam Speaker, this register of interest, it speaks to who should declare their interest. And it says a person in public life should make a declaration in the form set out in Schedule 2 of this bill. And Madam Speaker, I know during discussions, the document that is to be filled, we discussed having it amended to make it a bit more easier to understand and easier to fill. And I know when we go through the committee stage, we will definitely go through it and make sure that it is easier and as it now pertains to persons in public life. Madam Speaker, I just want to highlight who those persons in public life will now be. They are members of the House of Assembly, ministers of government, deputy governor, cabinet secretary, clerk, and deputy of the House of Assembly, complaints commissioner, the register of interest, the attorney general, the auditor general, director of public prosecutions, magistrate, registrar and deputy of the High Court, commissioner of police, deputy commissioner of police, permanent secretaries including the financial secretary, deputy permanent secretaries, deputy financial secretary and assistant secretaries, heads of departments, heads of units and their deputies, members of the board or other governing body of a public body, and other officers, and any person acting in an office referred to in this schedule for a period of more than 2 years. So, Madam Speaker, this register of interest now includes a cross-section of persons within government, along with elected officials. So as we go through this bill, I know there will be amendments coming out of this bill, and I just wish the public would have gotten a chance to actually go through this bill a little bit. But we are here, and we represent people, and we would make sure that it's in our best interest. So, Madam Speaker, as I support this new bill, and as we will get to the committee stages, I just want to show our commitment to being transparent and to being accountable to this territory in terms of this register of interest bill. So I say thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Premier, Minister for Communications and Works. I recognize the member for the 4th District.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to join my comments on this very important subject. I first want, Madam Speaker, to register my support for a proper Register of Interest Act that is required for the declaration of interest for persons in public life. So I support that. I secondly, Madam Speaker, want to make it very clear today that I am absolutely not in support of this bill being passed today without it having public discourse. It's a very crucial bill. It can be binding on those who are in here, and it will be binding on persons who may in future have an interest to be in public life, and therefore should have some opportunity to weigh in on a bill such as this. Very crucial before we pass this bill, even if we make amendments in committee, because persons out there in the public need to have the opportunity to weigh in on what is in the contents of this bill. This bill is very binding. It's very crucial, I think, for persons in the public to be in this bill. There seems to be a deadline story going on here, Madam Speaker, that maybe I support, but it cannot be a deadline without Madam Speaker, without consideration is the word I was looking for. Without consideration. And the consideration here, Madam Speaker, is that a bill like this being passed in one day in the three stages, first, second, and third reading, is not fair to the public. Not fair to those in here, not fair to those outside there, not fair to the public in general, who need to be able to weigh in on the contents of this bill, even if we do changes in committee stage. And I will go through a few things, Madam Speaker, as I present my discourse, if you permit me to, Madam Speaker, on what I mean by the importance of the public being able to weigh in on such an important bill. And it cannot be passed today because of a deadline issue, in light of those kinds of considerations. So I appeal for us to slow this down and let us get public input in this bill. I myself, Madam Speaker, haven't had the time to really study this bill. And as I go through it more and more and read it, it demands more research. It demands more information. It demands me to get some advice personally, legally even, before I can agree to this bill in a number of instances, Madam Speaker. And I will point some of those out, Madam Speaker, because it's not a simple bill. And it has some far-reaching implications and some far-reaching fees and penalties, Madam Speaker. So I must understand the bill properly before I can agree to it, Madam Speaker. So I appeal to us to slow it down a little bit, more and more as I look into it, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, when you compare the bill to the previous Register of Interest Act, which members of this House who were elected based on that Registration of Interest Act, and then a new act comes into place while we are in office that is very encompassing and even more binding. It is only fair to members of the House who have been elected to agree to this or not agree, or even to agree to the new bill. It should not be binding on this honorable House. It cannot be binding on this honorable House, as a matter of fact, because it is not what this honorable House members agreed to when they were elected. Madam Speaker. So let us be careful. There's certain things that are binding or cannot be binding. Yes, we normally make bills that become binding at in the next House of Assembly, on which members or persons run for office based on those. But you cannot midstream make changes that are binding on a House that is already elected, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this whole issue of deadlines and binding the House of Assembly to conform to these deadlines begs the question to me as to what and where is the authority of the House of Assembly? Maybe that's gone out the door, but it begs the question, Madam Speaker. I won't go through all of the things that are very crucial in here, Madam Speaker, but there's been some additions to this bill that I'm trying to see how it correlates with the old bill and how encompassing or how binding is it on members of the House. You know, you can start from, Madam Speaker, even in interpretations. The interpretations. Who's a child? Who's a child of the family? According to this bill. A child in relation, this definition, in relation to a person in public life. And Madam Speaker, some of this need to be aired now because the public have never seen this bill. I barely saw it before I came to the House. Child in relation to a person in public life means a person who has not attained the age of 18 years and who is dependent on this person in public life and includes a child born out of wedlock, an adopted child, a stepchild, or a child of the family. Child of the family in relation to a person, child of the family is the definition is in relation to a person in public life means any child who has been accepted and treated by both the person in public life and his or her spouse or partner as a child of their family. Let's begin. You understand that? That is effectively saying that if you casually agree that this is a child of the family, and I have a few of them who we say are our children, if you casually decide that this is a child of the family, that person is included here in this bill. Madam Speaker, including this bill. Definitions. Income. One has to declare his or her income. If you're in public life, what is the definition of this income? This is a new insert into this bill that wasn't the old bill. I have to get a clear understanding of what that means, because it's not as simple as it sounds. Madam Speaker, income, according to this bill, includes money or money's worth derived from whatever source or acquired in or outside of the territory. No problem with that. B, all receipts by way of salary, fees, wages, prerequisites, profits, gain, emoluments, rents, interest, commission, bonus, pension, annuity or benefit. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you want to go to that point that a member has a member of the House or a member in public life, and we'll go through the list of those members who are in public life, because these persons haven't even seen this bill yet, and we're here pass a bill on behalf of them. They haven't seen this bill yet, but they have to declare all these things. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the House is going to have to start giving an allowance for member security when we start going to these lengths. Who knows? I hear about abductions and kidnappings and all kinds of things in the world. I'm starting to try to understand what it means to us here in the BVI now. Trinidad and other places where I hear of these things. I thought it would never come to our shores, but we are inviting it. All receipts by way of salary, fees, wages, prerequisites, profits in your businesses. I have to tell the public what my profit is in my business. A private company. Gain, emoluments, rents, interest. How much interest I get from the bank? If I've had any, or how much interest I'm paying the bank. But that's all I do, I pay them. But regardless of what it is, this is very encompassing. And no problem, Madam Speaker, if we decide that is the case. But one had to sign up for that before he come into the House. Or one had to sign up for that before he became a person in public life. So let's make sure we know what we're doing here about this bill. Because it's okay to pass it, but make sure we know who it's binding on, is the point I'm making. Commission, bonus, pension, annuity, or benefit. Interest includes any assets, income, and liabilities. Another thing, Madam Speaker, I wanted to, and I'm coming back to some of the specifics, because there are a lot of things in here, Madam Speaker. I'm not glancing over this because we're trying to rush it through. I'm speaking about it because it's a bill that hasn't gone to the public yet. And somebody needs to air it out a little bit. Madam Speaker. Somebody needs to air it out a little bit. I asked a question, Madam Speaker. I asked a question now. How does this bill compare to other jurisdictions? What is the Register of Interest Act or similar act in the UK, in Bermuda, in Cayman Islands, in Turks and Caicos, in other countries in the world? What do they contain? And there should be one. But what is public? What is made public? And Mr. Speaker, I'm not talking about a Register of Interest Act that was public before and that members had access to and could make an appointment with the register and ask questions, Madam Speaker. This Register of Interest Act that we have here in section 3, the registrar shall permit inspection of the register at the request of any person during normal working hours. Any person. Fine, no problem. But that's not what 13 members there signed up to when they were elected. So if you're passing it, make sure it's not binding on these 13, but binding on the new elected officials that we are putting out there. And that's why I said, Madam Speaker, this needs to be publicly debated before it becomes binding on persons who intend to run for office in the future. It can't be that we are passing it here today without anybody in the public seeing this. and today is the first time they're hearing about it. It can't be. And I don't want Madam Speaker to sound like I'm against these things, you know. I'm just saying it needs to be publicly aired so that those who are in here and those who intend to be in here are those who intend to be on the list of those persons who are in public life, Madam Speaker, according to this act, that those persons had a chance to see whether they want to be in public life, continue in public life, or join public life in the future, Madam Speaker. So who are those persons? 18 categories. I'm going to come back to some specifics in the bill. I'm trying to find out where those 18 categories were. It was in Schedule 1. Schedule or schedule, I don't know which one, how you say it. I read it, Madam Speaker, and I'm not reading it quickly. I wanted to sink in. Persons in public life, according to this act, are members of the House of Assembly. That was the previous institution. Ministers of government, previously, yes. Deputy governor, added. Cabinet secretary, clerk and deputy of the House of, clerk and deputy, meaning deputy clerk of the House of Assembly. Complaints commissioner, registrar of interest, attorney general, auditor general, director of public prosecutions, magistrate or magistrates, registrar and deputy of the High Court, commissioner of police and deputy commissioner of police, permanent secretaries including the financial secretary, deputy permanent secretaries, deputy financial secretary, and assistant secretaries. Number 16, heads of departments. Before you come ahead of the department, you better understand what's in this bill, Madam Speaker. Units and their deputies, by whatever name they're called, according to this. 17, members of the board or other governing body of a public body and other officers, by whatever name you're called. Number 18, any person acting in office referred to in the schedule for a period of more than 2 years shall be subject to this registrar of interest. So, Madam Speaker, give those persons a chance to understand what is in here before we pass it, or even before we go to a committee and discuss it. So I'm calling on us to slow this down. Whatever deadlines we may have agreed to, let's slow this down and understand that this is encompassing, binding, and is very important to have public input and public interest in what we're talking about here. As we talk about transparency and governance and accountability, let's make sure that persons who this can affect in a very binding way, in a very encompassing way, in a very intrusive way, if that's what you sign on to, that those persons understand what this is all about, Madam Speaker, if I may. If I may, Madam Speaker. If I may. Very crucial. Very crucial. So, Madam Speaker, the bill refers in Section 2, and this is why I was trying to understand it. It refers in Section 2, Madam Speaker, despite subsection 1A, where on the day this act comes into force, a person in public life, the person shall within 90 days from the date of commencement file a declaration pursuant to this section, and thereafter in accordance with subsection 1B. Then it goes on to Section 3, Madam Speaker, and says, a declaration of interest under the section A shall be made in respect of interest held on the date on which the duty to make the declaration arose. But I wanted to pay attention to B, Madam Speaker. B says, it shall, where required by the registration form, You see, Madam Speaker, these are terminologies that come into these bills that you have to understand and which I want some guidance on. So, Madam Speaker, the registration form become a pertinent, very important aspect of this bill. So whoever is passing this bill better read the registration form. And whoever is listening and trying to interpret or understand this bill in the public better get a grip of the registration form that is in here and read it and understand it, because that registration form is what is binding. Shall, where required by the registration form, include a declaration in respect of the interest held on that day by a child, the spouse, or partner of the person in public life. Madam Speaker, I went behind this thing and I went in the back to read this declaration form, because this thing telling me that I better understand it. And the thing about it is, in the declaration form, Madam Speaker, I think it's in Schedule, is it Schedule 2? Schedule 2, right? Madam Speaker, I want every member to stop a minute, and I want the public to see this and read through it, because nothing is wrong with it, Madam Speaker, I'm saying, but please understand it before you decide to get into public life, or before you decide to remain in public life, or before you understand that I'm in here in the House of Assembly already and this form is binding on me if you pass it, on you, on all members, including the Speaker, including the clerk, deputy clerk. Madam Speaker, I didn't see the Sergeant at Arms in here, so he doesn't have to worry. But Madam Speaker, let's go to that form. That form says you got to talk. You got to talk of everything, everything, everything. You're a lawyer? You're a lawyer? You have some clients? List the names of those clients on that form, and the public can go to and see who are your clients. List even monies that you're paid. Your clients become public. I don't know how that contravenes client, what do you call it? Client privilege or whatever it is they're talking about. But Madam Speaker, this begs that question. I don't know if that is contradictory. I'm not a lawyer, I don't understand these things. But it begs the questions you have to, in section 3, in number 3, under under schedule 2, on this list, clients. Does any of the paid employment registered in categories 1 or 2 entail a provision of clients or services which depend essentially upon or arise out of your position as a person in public life? Mr. Speaker, now understand it, This list here of public life personnel to declare information is not just House of Assembly members, If you are serving on a board of the government, you have to tell that, you have to declare who your clients are. If you're a lawyer, or whatever other services you provide, you have to declare provision to clients or services which depend essentially upon or arise out of your position of person in public life. You have to declare it. Who can serve on those boards? And you have to tell everybody who your clients are. If it's yes, if you have them, please list all clients to whom you personally provide such services. Please also state in each case the nature of the client's business. What a thing. You understand that, Madam Speaker? You have to tell what the client's business is and who you're representing. Client privilege? I don't know. Note, the services covered by this category include action connected with any parliamentary proceeding, sponsoring meetings or functions in the House of Assembly's building or offices, making representations to ministers, members of public officials, accompanying declarations to ministers, and the provision of advice on parliamentary and public affairs. Where you receive remuneration from a company or partnership engaged in consultancy business, which itself has clients, you should list any of these clients to whom you personally provide such services or advice directly or indirectly. That's a big thing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, Madam Speaker. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying let's understand what it's saying. Because once you understand it, then it's up to you to sign on to it or to be in public life. And I want to re-emphasize, reiterate, Madam Speaker, that what we're referring to in this bill in public life is not just House of Assembly members. I just read those 18 categories. So I want those persons out there who are in public life already, who intend to be in public life, to really study this bill. Study this bill. Madam Speaker, do you know that this bill has a campaign finance aspect to it? Do you know this bill has a campaign finance aspect? Anybody who subscribes to your campaign, you have to declare it. Fine again, but let's understand it. I know we've been talking about Campaign Finance Act and a campaign finance bill, but we have it here already without even knowing it, Madam Speaker, without even knowing it. I'm going to read it for you, Madam Speaker, because I said I'm reading some sections here because I want the public to be aware of what this bill is about. And I am not saying it's not a good bill. All I'm saying is let's be aware of the bill, aware of its content, aware of what it means to you or to whoever, now or in the future, aware of it. Section, Madam Speaker, the same registration form, that's why I told you this registration form has some far-reaching implications. Don't just read the bill in front. Look at Schedule 2. Study Schedule 2. Study it. Study every line in it. Because if you declare it wrong and you declare the wrong information that's misleading, we can go back to if you don't declare the right thing, Madam Speaker, we're going back to section 5 and 6, especially section 6. A person in public life who knowingly make a declaration which is fraudulent or materially misleading commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $10,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years or both. So, Madam Speaker, you better get a form right, you know. You better fill it out right. You better get some legal advice when you fill it out, because it has some implications. Imprisonment for 2 years. Some of us were innocent if you know this form and you realize we just signed out their sentence. 2 years in prison. Which is fine, like I say. But let's understand what we signed on to. All I'm saying, Madam Speaker, all I'm saying, let's understand this. Campaign finance. You should register under this section any financial or material benefit, direct or indirect. For example, the provision of free, follow me, the provision of free or subsidized accommodation. Or the provision of the services of a research assistant free or at a subsidized salary rate. So Honorable Malone, your friend coming from somewhere and he's going to spend time with you, free, or in one of your little guest houses next to you, that you probably use for, what do you call it, BRB, or not BRB, what are one name? Airbnb. So you put them in there. Yeah, no, man, you know, we good friends. You don't need to pay. You better declare it. And you know, you got to declare it before he came. So he must have intended to come when you declared it. I'm saying we need some legal advice on these things. That's all I'm trying to point out here. 2, Roman numeral 2, in the, under this form. In the case of a member, you should register money given to you by your election campaign committee. Which one y'all said it there? You should register money given to you by your election campaign committee and money spent by your election campaign committee in connection with your election with your written permission. With your written permission. You better write instructions to your campaign committee to spend money now properly. Nothing wrong with that. I'm saying maybe that's good. But I'm just saying let's understand what this bill says, what this form requires. Because out in the bill it says as the form required. 3, the answer to question 4A need not to contain information in respect of elections which took place prior to the enactment. At least the last election or two, you don't have to go back and try to drum up that information. Very encompassing, Madam Speaker. This is not a little bill. This ain't a little run-over thing here today that we should be dealing with. Let's understand it, and when we sign on to it, let's understand what we're signing on to. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. You have something here, Madam Speaker, which I have to let the public know what it says. A member of the House of Assembly can, what section is that again? You have to be out of office for 2 years. He can be suspended for 2 years. Section 8. A member of the House of Assembly who is convicted of an offense under this act is liable in addition to any other penalty prescribed by law to be suspended from sitting and voting in the House of Assembly for such period as the court considers appropriate, not exceeding 2 years from the date of the conviction or the offense. Yes, Madam Speaker, I know we noted these things, but what this is saying is that a member of the House whose electorate elected him for 4 years can be suspended for 2. But they go to a by-election. So let's make sure it says what it should say in here. If you suspend the person for 2, just say that he should be suspended or expelled and have a by-election. So let's make sure we get this thing right, because this little thing called Registration of Interest Act is very encompassing. And maybe it's appropriate, but let's make sure we understand what it says. And let's make sure that we know who it's binding on. Is it this house or the next house? And let's make sure that we understand who are these persons in public life that this bill refers to, and let those persons have a chance to weigh in on this bill. And let the public have a chance to weigh in. The public most likely, because everybody wants transparency. Everybody wants to know what members of the House of Assembly are doing. What's their involvement? What are their assets and so on that may be a conflict of interest, which is the right thing. But how far does it go, and who is it binding on, is what we have to ask, beg the question of. Is it this house? Is it the next house? In the middle of a house, a bill like this cannot be binding on the present members. We may make some adjustments like we did before on this bill. But this is not what members of this house signed on to when they ran for office. That is not the norm, and that's not how things operate in this proper manner. So in the interest of transparency, good governance, and accountability, let's make sure that this bill slows down and give the public a chance to be involved in it, Madam Speaker. With that, Madam Speaker, I take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you, member for the fourth. Members, the floor is open for debate. Should anyone wish to say anything? The floor is still open for debate. Okay, well, at this time, members, I believe we'll recess for lunch. So we will resume at 3:30 p.m. This house is now in recess. This House now resumes its sitting. Honorable members, in light of the time for today, I think it would be prudent for us, especially with the various engagements that members have to attend and the commitments as well that members have to attend, that we recess until the 14th of July, 2022 at 10 a.m. This House is now in recess.